Welcome back to the Pushing Through Loss podcast, where we share stories, honor resilience, and embrace strength. I am Kalila Green Siciliano, and it is my honor to begin the journey with you. Today, I have with me Desire, who I am so honored to have. A few months ago, we had her husband, Jesse, on to tell a little bit about their story of losing their daughter. And it was a really interesting perspective because normally we don't hear from the husband side of you. And so to hear also not only from Jesse's point of view, but now to have you come on the show and tell your side of the experience, it's just what a blessing you can give to other people to let them know that all couples that go through this can go through this together.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just honored to be here, honestly.
My pleasure. It really is. And I think for that reason, like to just having started this podcast and be able to talk to people who have been through loss and been through this really awful ordeal to share with others, it's really my honor. So thank you. Let's start at the beginning and tell me, and I guess maybe remind the audience a little bit about what happened and the situation that you guys found yourselves in when you lost your baby.
So at the time I was, we were trying to have faith for probably 3 years, and it just wasn't working. And I gave up on the fact that we were going to have a child together. So just kind of like a backstory is I have a child biologically with me, and then he has a child biologically with him, but I've raised his daughter since she's been 3, and he has raised Haley since she's been 5.
Okay.
So that's kind of just like a backstory. So we never had one together, and it took a while to get faith, and so we got faith. And I remember when I told him that we were having faith, and it was like a dream come true. We were so excited to be able to share a child together. And I was a teacher at the time, so I was a special ed teacher in school and very local to us. And I had been there for 10 years. And I remember exactly where I was. I was at the lunch table with my students, and I was sitting down and I was having lunch with them, and I was about 6 months pregnant at the time. And I looked over at the teacher's assistant that was with me, and I said to her, I don't think I can walk. I don't think I can stand up and walk right now. And so a couple of my students looked over and they're like, Mrs. Cruz, are you okay? And I was like, I don't think so. I think Mrs. Cruz needs to go to the hospital. So the teacher's assistant that was with me at the time, she was like, Des, this is something that you can't play around with. Like, you should get yourself to the hospital. So I called Jesse and I said, I'm going to take myself to the hospital. So that's kind of where it started. I was about 6 months pregnant.
What a terrifying experience, not just for you, but for your students also, to all of a sudden be like hit with this pain that you're like, I can't move.
Yeah. It was just like, it was so bad that I hadn't been feeling really great that whole morning. And then by the time it got to like lunchtime, it was like I couldn't even walk anymore. So I just knew, I just knew something wasn't right. And I knew pretty much the entire pregnancy something wasn't right, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
I called a lot of red flags. Yeah, I called a lot of red flags throughout all the doctor's visits and said, something's much different with this pregnancy than I have ever experienced, because my first pregnancy was like easy breezy, like perfect, so the pregnancy itself was just completely different. And then I ended up having a fibroid, which I don't know if you're familiar with. I wasn't until I had one. So a fibroid is common with women who are pregnant. And what it is, it's a mass. And what it does is it actually takes all the blood from the pregnancy, and instead of giving it to the baby, it feeds the mass, and it makes the mass get bigger, and bigger. And I had never heard of this before. Again, my first pregnancy was not any of those things. So I was in a significant amount of pain, a couple hours of the day. I was, again, a special ed teacher, so I worked hard. And, I sat a lot, but it was like just a lot on me, and so I found out that the mass had grown into like a a size of a tennis ball
Wow.
at that point. So it was like I was 6 months and it was like a tennis ball, and the pregnancy was like feeding it. So the baby wasn't getting what the baby was supposed to be getting because this mass was taking it, and it was painful. And so I drove myself to the hospital. I called my boss. I said, listen, I'm driving myself to the hospital right now. I feel like I'm going into labor. I know it's really way too soon. What's happening right now? And they're like, Des, don't even worry about it. Like, we got you covered. And I get to the hospital and I can't barely walk. And the doctors are like, I don't know why you're here. You have a fibroid. You know you have a fibroid, and this is just part of what your pregnancy is going to look like because you have a fibroid. And I was like, no, something's not right. And they're like, no, you're going to be okay. And they sent me home. And I was like looking at my husband, I'm like, no, this is not right. So yeah, we had quite an experience. And to really cut some of this part out, I had gone back multiple times that day. So I kept going back and saying, something's not right. Then they would send me back home. And then I'd go back, I say, something's not right. And they sent me back home.
Did they
And I don't
ever
know if
do an
Jesse told you this
ultrasound
part
in
of the
any of
story.
those? No, he didn't.
No. So yeah, no, they did none of that. They said it was just part of it, that it was just part of having the fibroid. And I just don't know if Jesse, he probably didn't tell you this side of the story, but I literally punched a hole in my bathroom door. I
Wow.
punched a
No,
hole in
he
the bathroom
definitely
door
did
and
not
I
tell
said,
me that.
someone better. Yes. I said, someone better start listening to me because something is not right. And they are not going to send me home again. I said, so take me to the hospital. And I need someone to actually listen to me. Something needs to happen. I am in so much pain at this point that I feel like I can't even, at that point, I was like desperate. Like,
Did it
you are
feel
not
like
giving me medical
contractions or
care.
did it feel just like a consistent pain?
It felt like I literally got ran over by a truck. It was
Oh,
literally the worst pain I have ever felt in my life. And it
right.
just kept increasing, and it was increasing so quickly and so bad. And so he was like really shocked because I don't act like that.
Right.
And he went over and he brought me over there and he's like, listen, she's telling me that she's not leaving. Like, something needs to happen. And by this point, I told Jesse, I said, listen, you need to go get a doctor right now. Like, we're in the hospital now and I'm sitting there, and I said, I'm going to lose consciousness if you don't go get a doctor right now. And
Right.
so as he's running to go get a doctor, I'm falling out of consciousness. Like, I'm about ready to completely
Wow.
faint. Yeah. So the pain was so bad that I fainted, and they had to get me back up. And I'll never forget, like, this doctor was some of the, and I don't like bashing doctors. I'm not here to bash doctors, but do you know, like, when the doctors, they work like all those shifts and they have to sleep overnight in like
Yeah.
a special room? Well, you could tell that this guy literally just woke up and he was completely out of it.
Uh,
Like, he just stumbled into the room and his hair was like all messy. He's like, and I'm like, get me somebody else.
right.
Get
When
me
you're
somebody
in
else.
that
Like,
much
get this dude
pain,
out
like
of
that
my
is
face.
not what you want to see.
Yeah. Oh, it was the worst experience I've ever experienced. And this is the same guy that sent me home like 5 times without even
Oh,
coming in. Like, he barely came in, was like, you need to go home. And then he stumbles in the room and he's like wiping his eyes, his hair's all messed. Like, he literally just a mess. And I was
so
like,
you're
go
ready to
get me
punch a
somebody else.
hole
I
through
don't even want
him.
this guy in my face. Right. Like, I was so at a level at that point. So finally he took me a little bit more serious, and after I fainted, and chest, And he said, "You're going into labor." And I said, "Well, yeah, I tried to tell you that hours ago." Um, and he's like, "So we don't have the facility here to take care of you. So we need to make a choice, and we need to make a choice quickly." And I was like, "Okay." Like, "Do you want to do a mercy flight and I'll get you there very quickly? Or do you want to take the chance and get into an ambulance?" And I said, "If I get into an ambulance, will my husband be allowed to go with me? Because at the mercy flight, they will not allow my husband to come with me." And I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, I'm at this point now where I'm faint from pain, right?
Right.
And so as I'm getting wheeled out, so now they're rushing me, and so now I had to make a decision. I said, "I want my husband to be with me, so let's do the ambulance." So they're rushing me out of the room, and this nurse grabs my hand, and she says to me, "But we forgot to give you a shot, and
Oh,
you're supposed to have two, and they're supposed to be within a certain amount of time in between." Because they kept sending me home, so they never gave me what I was supposed to get, right? Not
right.
thinking I was going in labor. Well, I was going into labor. So she gives me a shot really quick right on the way out. And she looked at me and she said, "Honey, you're supposed to get two of these, but we don't have enough time. And they have to be spread out within a
Was
certain
this
amount of time."
was
And I
this
want to
the
say it was
shot that helps like boost the baby's lungs so that way if they are delivered early that they're able to then breathe?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. So I was supposed to get two. I only got one because they weren't
Wow.
listening. And yeah. And I was like, and she like looked at me and held my hand and said, "I'm so sorry." Basically like this, that's what she looked at me like, and I'll never forget that nurse. That was the first time I actually felt seen and heard. And I was getting pushed out of the room, and so they're putting me in an ambulance, and the entire ambulance ride I thought I was gonna die. Literally. I'm screaming to God, "Please do not take me and my daughter." Like I'm praying, I'm screaming, "Please don't." Like I literally felt like I was gonna die, and my husband's gonna be without a wife and without his child, and then these kids that I have here are gonna be without a mom and a sister. So I'm like screaming in pain and just screaming and praying, and like it felt like the longest ride I've ever had in my entire life.
Mm.
And I remember getting rushed into this hospital, and there's an entire team meeting. Like the entire team just swarmed me as soon as I got in. And they put me under immediately and said, "You have two choices, to do this as a C-section or to do this." Um, like they gave us two choices, and we had to figure out, what are we going to do? Are we going to try to have her naturally, or are they going to do a C-section? And the rates of her surviving of like a regular delivery was like so small. And so we were like, "Well, what is the highest rate?" So they said emergency C-section. I said, "All right, well then let's do that." But they wouldn't let Jesse go in the room.
Mm.
And I don't remember anything else from that point on. I mean, it was like quick, 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 quick. And I just remember my husband started like hyperventilating.
Wow.
And I remember they took me out, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And I remember him calling his mom and saying, "I need you to pray for me right now." And I remember looking over at him, and he's got his mom on the phone, and she's just praying to Jesse, you know. And I don't really remember what happened from that point on. I do remember when I woke up, I said, "Where's Faith?" And they were like, "She survived." I said,
Wow.
"No way. I cannot believe this baby is a warrior." Like, she is a warrior. I cannot believe it. 6 months pregnant, this baby made it.
Right.
And so Jess said, the nurse at the place told him that she came out like in a full ambiotic sac. So she said
Wow.
in 25 years of her nursing, she's never seen that. So
Wow.
Faith came out still in full ambiotic, kicking and fighting and screaming like her mommy.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was a journey from that point on. And gosh, I got to tell you, I am so thankful for the children's hospital that we have in this state. The Galasanos Children's Hospital is one of the best in the country, and I'm so thankful that we were there.
Mhm.
She had an incredible team of doctors that were amazing, an incredible team of people. They took care of me so well there, and they took care of my daughter so well there, and everybody was just so phenomenal. So I can't say enough about the Ronald. It's a Galastanos Ronald McDonald connection, and it was amazing. When you feel so ignorant to stuff, like you have no idea about what that's like unless you're in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like people don't really understand cancer unless you've been a cancer person or unless you've had cancer in your family, right?
Yep.
People don't understand what it's like for suicide unless you're someone who has experienced suicide and there's suicide in your family.
Right.
This was a whole, I felt so ignorant when I woke up and realized how prematurity is killing so many of the babies. And it's the number one cause for the death of newborns. And I was thrown into this whole group of people and families that I had no idea people were dealing with. Like, I didn't know that there was a whole, part of the hospital that was for babies just like mine. I didn't know that there was moms all lined up and families all lined up in corners of the rooms, all of the way down multiple hallways on ventilators and stuff, trying to live. Like, it was just, I felt so ignorant, honestly. And I gave so much credit to those doctors and those nurses, because it's incredible what they do every day
Yeah.
and what they step into every day. That whole NICU unit,
It really is. And
it's
I have to
amazing.
say, it's
Like,
a really interesting perspective to hear your side of the story and to hear Jesse's side of the story, because obviously, as somebody who went through it and was in labor and knew something was going on with your body versus hearing Jesse, he was so concerned for you and for Faith. And he was so like just unsure of what was going on, whereas you could tell, you knew innately that there was something there. And I think that is a testament to all of us women, that when you have that intuition, when you know that something's going on, speak up and say something and really force the issue. It shouldn't have gotten to the point that you had to punch a hole through a bathroom door or faint in the emergency room or any of those steps. It should have been something that when you first came in and said something's wrong, they should see you, and whatever, it doesn't matter.
I agree. Yeah, like you have to have a voice. You
Mm-hmm.
have to. Because like even the best doctors in the world, they don't know what you're doing. They don't know what you're
Right.
going through. They don't know your body, you know.
And I think that that brings it
Um,
into the point that you just said about feeling ignorant about the whole thing, because most people, thank God, go through pregnancy very blissfully and they think, everything's going well and everything is going the way it should be going. And most people don't have to get to that point of feeling like, oh my gosh, something is terribly wrong. But when they do, there's nothing that is put out there as like a prerequisite to say, if X, then Y. And when you get thrown into it, now, like you said, you're in this NICU unit. You have no idea what's going on. You have no idea how many other people have been going through this. And now you're in this line of moms and dads just praying over their babies.
yeah, and it was like, man, it's just seeing the families and the amount of babies and the amount of machines that they require and the care and the just everything, the resources and the teams and the families and the social workers. I mean, there's so much. The NICU journey is like an entire journey.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's a journey of like a roller coaster ride.
Right.
It was like a roller coaster ride I didn't ever want to be on. That's the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
It's like I was on this ride and I couldn't get off and I didn't want to be on it. and
Yeah.
it was kind of like, that's what it was for me.
And meanwhile, you both have your two kids
So
at home that you're like, okay, we've got Faith in the hospital praying for her survival, and two young kids who are at home. Like you're torn between two worlds.
yeah, and one good thing about this area, which I know is a blessing for our area, and I know it's not like this everywhere, but there's this Ronald McDonald house that they have, and it's across the street from the hospital, and
Wow.
so they house families there, and they give them transportation to and from the hospital, and they let me sleep there. They fed me. They let my family come on the weekends. It was just literally the biggest blessing I've ever, like, and again, I didn't know any of this stuff existed.
Right.
And I was so thankful just to be able to be there. They didn't charge me. They would give me bagged lunches. They would have meals ready for me. And the lady that was like the security person that like I'd have to put a code in and she would let me in, and she knew I liked cheesecake. So like I'd be at the hospital like all day with Faith, all night with Faith. And then I'd come home to come sleep and she'd save me a piece of cheesecake. And like
Aww.
she'd be like, here's some cheesecake.
It really is the little
So
things
like
when
the
you
staff
know
was just
someone, right? You know someone's looking out for you and you're like, oh, there is a God.
yeah, it's like the worst moment of my life, and you saved me a piece of cheesecake. Like you're such an angel.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. It was just an incredible. And again, I didn't know any of these things existed, and I can't even imagine doing the journey without that being a part of the journey. And so I stayed there every night, and I had Jesse come back home because we didn't want the whole entire world to change. We wanted their lives of my young girls at the time. We wanted them to be able to still go to school, still have a normal life of not messing up their whole thing and having to bring them all the way to a Ronald McDonald house and all those things. It was like it was hard enough on them that they already knew that it was happening, and it was hard enough that the community knew it was happening. So we wanted to try to keep as much as possible the same. So I had Jesse come back here, and I stayed at the Ronald McDonald house, and that's how we did it. So Jess would come to the Ronald McDonald house after he dropped them off at school. And yeah, at the time he was finishing up his bachelor's degree. My kids were in school, we had pets, all that stuff. So at the time it was like, there's a lot of things going on. I was a teacher, he was in school, he had a job, our kids are in school, we have pets, like all that stuff. So that's what we kind of figured out is I'll stay at the Ronald McDonald house, and then he can just come and meet me whenever he's finished with what he had to do. And I would stay with Faith, and I stayed with Faith 24/7. I didn't leave her, and I turned into like a NICU doctor. It was crazy. It's like you go in there as a mom, ignorant of all things, and
Yeah.
then by the time you get in there, when it's like your baby on that table, you turn into the doctor.
Yeah. You learn
So I knew
everything
everything.
you
I knew what
possibly
everything.
can.
Yeah, yeah. So I knew what everything meant. I knew what all the numbers meant. I knew what she needed. I started doing as much as I could with her. Yeah, it was just like, it's like I turned into a doctor overnight. And that's kind of just what I did. And we just, we did that for a long time.
How long was she in the hospital for?
42 days.
Wow. And was there
Yeah, so
ever a
Jesse
point that
stroke,
she got, was there ever a point that she got to where it was like, maybe there is hope that she's coming home?
yeah, I mean, it was like a roller coaster ride. That I mean, she got so much bigger, and she started as this like 1 pound little pet. She was actually the smallest on the floor.
Oh,
But like as time went on, she was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I would see her, and I started breastfeeding her like through like this little tube thing. So I could put breast milk in this like tube, and then it would go through a tube and she would get the breast milk. So I was pumping, I was breastfeeding, I was still doing as much as I could uh, with her being as little as she would grab my little finger, all that. Like she was a fighter. She was super, super trying to fight, you know. She was on a ventilator though, so like I never got to hear her cry or anything because it just, you know, you don't get to hear any of that when they're on a ventilator. But yeah, I was able to hold her a couple times. Because when they're that little, they actually their skin isn't developed all the way, so it sometimes it you know, they're not supposed to be held at that point because they're so little still. So we just figured we'd try it, and she just did not like it. So it made
Oh,
me really nervous. So I only held her twice, but she was so little, and I was like, let's just keep her where she's safe, where she's good.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So she got pretty big, and I thought she was doing well, but again, it was like there was days where she did so good, and then there was days that she would just drop, and then there was days that she would go back up, and then she would just drop, and it was
Yeah.
literally just a roller coaster ride that was so full of so many highs and so many lows that it was so mentally exhausting and so emotionally exhausting, and you know, a lot of hope and then a lot of fear, and then a lot of hope and then a lot of fear, and then it was like then it like things started shifting when I started seeing families disappear from rooms all around me, you know. Um, and some of those families had been there for 18 months. I mean,
Wow.
just yeah, I mean there was kids in there that were, you know, they were there a really long time. And then I would see rooms just get completely cleared out all around us. And me and Jesse were just like, wow, this is it's quite a journey to be a part of. Um, so yeah, it was a real lot. Um, we prayed for some of the families on the floor, and we tried like to like, you know, give a little bit of comfort to the families as much as we could around us and stuff. Because we get to hear how long people are, what their circumstances are, and you just don't know, you know, with the NICU you just don't know it's they're not always newborns, you know, but they're like young babies that have to have treatments and things. So yeah, we were there for 42 days, and that's where Jesse started writing in his journal every day, and that's what actually turned into his first book.
And that's what he said. He said
So
when
it
he was
was
when you guys were in there, he didn't know what else to do. He said he was so angry and he was like not losing faith, but just angry with God, angry with the situation, wanted to feel hope, wanted to feel like he could do something. And so that's when he said the only thing that got him through it was just writing and just writing, writing, writing. And it's incredible that he was able to have thoughts that sounded like they could be hopeful to other people also.
yeah, so he was just that was his therapy, and we did a lot of things for that. We would play music. We played worship music. Like they allowed us to worship what we believed.
Nice.
We had like a big verse on. I made a big poster with like a verse that we really needed to like look at every day, and I put it up above her NICU bed, and we had the kids come in during the weekends and read to her and stuff. So it was like, you know, it was we were trying to just grasp onto anything at that time, but it was like everything was out of control. We didn't have no control, you know, we
Right.
didn't know. And so we put everything in our faith. And
Yeah.
you know, I truly believe that, you know, faith was the way I look at it was that he came in and he saved her from a life of really a lot of medical complications.
Yeah.
Because with her being so little, if she survived, she was facing a lot of medical conditions at that point because she was on a ventilator for so long, and you know her lungs aren't fully developed, and there was a high chance of a lot of different things that could have been like a result of it all. So I don't know. I just felt like in my gut and in my soul that he saved her from a life of not being able to breathe correctly, constantly being hospitalized, you know, all those things. And it was a the night that she passed, I had a very strange overwhelming peace that came over me. It
Mhm.
was very strange because you would not think that would be what would be happening, right? Jesse was in chaos. And I had a strange amount of peace of like just like surrendering it to him, and that he's gonna put her in a better place. And it was just an overwhelming sense of peace. It's the only way that I explain it. It was just like, I just surrendered at that point. And I
Mhm.
think that was a pivoting moment for our family.
Mhm.
Because what do? You have no control over what happens.
Right.
And it changed our whole family, like really surrendering, really being in a place where we just had no control, and you throw your hands up in the sky and just say, like, I surrender, whatever this is, whatever you're trying to do right now, I trust whatever it is happening. And it was the worst moment ever. Um, but it changed everything inside of me. It changed things in our marriage. It changed my whole family, you
And I'm
know?
a big believer in the way that energy works, and whether you believe in God or you believe in a higher source or whatever it is that you do believe, the fact that you could feel it and the fact that you could feel that shift in yourself probably also was translated not just to Faith, but to Jesse and to your other two girls, that like whatever is going to happen. And your job is to be as strong as you can and to be together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge shift for us. It was like, her name was Faith. And I saw so much that this little girl accomplished in 42 days. Like, to me, it's like it changed everything for me. Changed everything for me because I really started, when you're in a place where you have to throw your hands up in the air because you have no control over what's about to happen next, when you actually get to a place like that, you have a lot of choices to make.
Right.
And I saw how this one little girl has changed so many things in my life. And she literally had countries. I mean, there's people in Africa emailing us, telling us that they're praying for Faith. I mean,
Wow.
it was just a tidal wave of community, a tidal wave of support. We had basketball teams wearing purple socks because Jesse was a
Oh,
coach at the time. So they all went and bought like purple socks to represent premature awareness
that's
for all the
awesome.
games that he wasn't able to be at. I mean, it was just like we had people showing up at my door, bringing my family food, taking care of my dogs, offering to come take my kids so that they could spend the weekend with them, so that me and Jesse could be together at the place. I mean, it was just like incredible, the amount of things that I was seeing happen. The impact was like a tidal wave, and it changed my whole life. I mean, it literally was like, I can't even believe that this little girl has done so much in 42 days as far as positive impact in people's lives. Yeah, it was so inspiring to me. And so that kind of like gave us no excuse at that point. So me and Jesse had to like take a long look at each other and be like, all right, so this little girl who's 1 pound and was here for 42 days just did a tidal wave of impact. Like, who are we waiting for? We don't have
Right.
any excuses at this point.
Right. Right. I mean, this
So
itty
then,
bitty baby of like you said, she was a pound and she was 42 days that she was here on this earth. And yet there's people all over the world who are now learning more about premature birth and learning more about bringing awareness to it and the research and anything that can be done to help save other babies.
yeah, I mean, it was incredible. Like, we got to see all the families connected by it. Like, they do this thing called Stroll for Strong for the hospital, where everybody that works for the hospital and all the families that have ever been a part of the NICU and everything, they all do a walk and they all stroll, and everybody comes together at one time. And then at the end of the 5K walk, like, they have all these sponsors that sponsors lunch and bounce houses and all this stuff. And the amount of people that come to this thing, the amount of families that you see, and you see their faces on their t-shirts and their names, and some of them have like angel wings, and the amount of people that you see and the amount of children that are affected by this, it is such an eye-opening experience for someone who doesn't understand. It is affecting a lot of families.
Yeah.
And So I was like, man, I got thrown into a world that I never knew even existed, and it made me feel so ignorant. And I said, man, I gotta be able to use her life. And I mean, she just changed my whole life and did this tidal wave of impact. I have to carry this on, right? And then I had someone say to me just recently, which I thought was amazing, was that he allows you to be here until your purpose is completed. And that's what that was their impact.
Hmm.
That was their perspective.
Hmm.
And so she changed our whole life, you know, tidal waved our whole perspective, put us in a whole group of people who have experienced kind of situation. And she said she was called and to carry out a purpose, and her purpose was fulfilled. And it was just such an eye-opening, if you think about it, her life made me step into a whole community of people I didn't even know existed, and contributing to awareness in this area that I had no idea before was, so yeah, I mean, her life has been so purposeful in so many ways. And we just continue to carry out her legacy. I mean, that's, you either get to pick what you want to do with such a terrible situation. Do you want to drown from it, or do you want to rise from it? And
Yep.
I kept reminding my husband, because Jesse, he was really struggling for a little while. And I told him, I looked at him one day and I said, listen, she want you to drown in this. She wouldn't want that,
Right.
and our kids wouldn't want you to drown in this either, because
Right.
they're still here and they're still fine, and so you gotta figure out, like, how do we honor her and rise? That's the whole thing about this.
Yeah.
And because I truly believe the people that we love and that we lose, and what we believe is that they're in a better place. And how do you carry out and honor that life when they're, because I do believe that they come and they're here for a purpose, and when the purpose is completed, that they're gone. And for some reason, it just happened to be that that was hers, and I surrendered to that. And I truly believe that we can honor them in a whole different way. It's like a whole veil is taken from you, and you get shown how to honor these loved ones of ours in a completely different way.
Yeah. And I know it's always hard to hear. I know, like, I've talked to a lot of people who have said, you know, nothing anybody said made me feel better. And sometimes people say really just insensitive and not well thought out things. And I think it always depends on the person, because, like you said, for you, hearing that every single person who's here on this earth, whether they're here for seconds or whether they're here for, 90, 100 years, everybody's got some sort of purpose. And it's what you then do to carry on that legacy after they're gone that makes the difference. And it's something that some people say, I don't want to hear that. I don't believe that God would take somebody from me if I love
Mhm.
God, or if I had enough faith, or whatever it is. But death is the only certain thing in life. And so whether it happens before we think it's supposed to happen or after we think it's supposed to happen, we're not in charge. God is. And there's, I
Right.
don't know, I just feel like there's never the right thing to say, but if you can find solace in anything
Mhm.
people give you, that is a huge step. And like you said, you and Jesse were in two different places.
Yeah.
Jesse definitely was feeling much more hurt and much more alone and much more helpless, whereas you felt that surrender. I know that you've talked a little bit about how you got him there, but really, like, do you remember if there was a point that both of you were then on the same page where he said, "You're right. I can't keep staying living in this world where Faith is here because she's not here."
Yeah, I mean, he had, struggled pretty bad for a little while. And it, like they say, when you experience a children or a child's death in the family, the statistics for the marriage to stay together is, I mean, we statistically just were not meant to be together.
Right.
Um, and with our situation with it being a blended family, I mean, we have a lot of things against us, right? We had everything against us to not make it through that. And we made it, you know. Was it easy? No. I mean, it was not easy. Did it change our whole life? It changed our whole life. It changed our whole marriage. It changed how we looked at things. It changed our perspective. It changed, at the time, Jesse and I, we were still pretty young, and we grew up real quick. I mean, we had kids already, but like we were a young family, it forced us to start thinking differently about purpose and life and all these things and faith and that's kind of, where he saw that the journaling was helping him it was the only thing that helped him, like he
Mm,
said to you. And I said, Jesse, if it's helping you, we got to help other people because there's a lot of us out here. There's a lot of families out here. We see it. I mean, we literally saw how many families were affected by this. If
right.
it's helping you, then let's put it out to the world so it can help our families. And that's when he put the book out.
And
So
now
it took a little
I
while,
know
but
that he works with, as a coach, and he works with people and speaking and being able to have other people find their voice. Are you working with him, or
yeah.
have you started doing something on your own?
So we own the company together.
Okay.
And so he's a public speaking coach, and we host live events all over the world. So I was the event planner, you know, I did all the stuff. I planned everything and did all the
Nice.
stuff behind the scenes. And he was the person like on the mic in front of the camera. And I was cool with that for a little while. And then I started really realizing that, here I am encouraging everybody else to tell their story, and I got one heck of a story. And so I said, you know what, I'm tired of being just in the back, so give me that thing. So I took the mic, and I haven't been able to get off the mic since.
Nice.
um but yeah, no, I really wanted to make it a point where we're in faith with every person. Like right now in this interview, right now with you, I would not know you. We would not be on this interview if it wasn't for this 1 pound baby girl. And
Yep.
so I used to mic from them and make sure that we stopped so every event that we ever host, and we've hosted a lot, um, but before we start every single event, I do not skip over that part because the entire company is because of a 1 pound baby, period,
Right.
who changed everything.
Right.
And our story helped other people heal. And that's the part about this that's so much bigger than us. And so before we start anything, I hold a moment of silence for Faith, because without this baby and without her legacy, none of this is possible. None of what we're doing is possible. And it's just been a beautiful way to honor her and to be able to have her life, have purpose.
Yeah. And it's amazing. And I have so much encouragement that you guys not only will continue to do great things, but that you're really helping so many people, and not just people who have experienced a pregnancy loss or a stillbirth or a child death, because there are people that have found you from all walks of life that are looking to find their voice. So I think that you guys are doing some incredible things. And I think you wrote your own book, right?
Yeah, so Jesse does coaching, and it started with him writing. That first book was released from the NICU.
Mm,
And then he went on and did his first speech, and then did his second speech, and then now all of a sudden he's speaking everywhere. And I used to be there and video recording his speeches, and every time I used to see him speak, I saw him healing, and I saw him helping other people heal in the audience. And I
mm,
went, man, this is something. So that's where we started this live events where we have people come and, share their story and try to make it fun and have it be a little bit of a competition and have some judges and have it just be, a fun way to do it. And it was amazing. And I got to hear so many amazing people. And then again, I just took the mic and started, getting comfortable with the mic too, instead of being the person just planning it all behind the scenes. And in that platform, I realized that I got to meet a lot of people and a lot of incredible people with incredible stories. And I used to walk up to them specifically with a woman, like a woman with a like amazing story. Like I appreciate and love about everybody's stories, but there's some about a woman's story
Hmm.
that just does something for me much
Totally.
differently. So I would walk up, I would walk up to the women and I'd be like, how many people know about your story? And they'd be like, you're the only one. And I'm like, your own family doesn't know about this? And they're like, no.
Wow.
I'm like, my goodness, like, what an honor. Like, what an honor that is. But like, how do we do it so that your family does know, you know? Um, so that they can carry this on for your legacy.
Right.
And I just, I literally woke up one day because I heard a whisper saying, just do it. So I did it. So I woke up the next day and I had a conversation with my oldest daughter, and she was 16 at the time, and I literally said, do you even know my story? And she's like, well, yeah, mom, of course I know your story, but like your story's too sad. I don't want to hear your story. And oh, I
Right.
failed.
Right. There's so much hope
So
that came from
I
this.
said, honey, there's so much story. Yeah, I said, there's so much more that I want you to know about my story than you just feeling bad for me. I said, this is not a victim story. So I'm like, I
Right.
felt like I failed so bad. Um, so I woke up the next morning and decided to start Warrior Women. And Warrior Women is a series where I am encouraging women to share their stories, and not only sharing their stories, but saying, this is what I need you to know from the story. So that
Mhm.
people don't get to walk away feeling like, oh, I feel sad for you.
Right.
And so that we carry on the life lessons with the stories to our family. So now you're published, you're in a book with your life and connected to your story so that your family has it forever. And that was Warrior Women, and it's been incredible.
That's awesome. Where can people find you so that if they do have a story that they want to share, they know how to reach out to you?
It's our website is www.mergeworldwide.com. On our website, you get to see everything about, our live events, Jesse's coaching. I also do transformation coaching and the Warrior Woman series and Jesse's books. And then my kids actually wrote some books too. Um, and just the different things that we host because we do retreats and all the things. So that's all on there. And then on Facebook, they can just contact me at Desire Cruz.
Okay, perfect. And I'll make sure to include all that in the show notes as well so that people can see it. But Desiree, it really has been an honor. I'm so glad that I got a chance to talk to you and hear directly from you. It really is so interesting to hear both perspectives and to get to know both you and Jesse. Like you said, if it wasn't for your daughter and it wasn't for all the things that have happened since, you wouldn't be meeting people. And I feel the same way. If it wasn't for me losing a baby in a pregnancy at 16 weeks, I wouldn't be meeting all these incredible people. So I truly am blessed to find those silver linings and to be able to make, like you said, make myself into a victor and not a victim, and to help others find the same. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. And I'm just so thankful that our children brought us together and that we're able to, hopefully the last part of healing is that you're able to help other people.
Yeah.
And, I feel really strongly called to that. I feel so strongly called to that. To be able to, if it helps one person between you and I, it's just, that's what we're here actually supposed to be doing. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me and having the platform so that I can get on a space like this and to be able to share my story, because I hope it helps your audience.
Yeah, I definitely think it does. And I think just knowing that other people aren't alone in their situation is the first step to healing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today on Pushing Through Loss. I hope this episode has provided support, understanding, and a sense of community for those who've experienced pregnancy loss. Remember, you are not alone in your journey, and there is strength within you to face the challenges that come your way. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with others who may benefit. Together, we can help each other heal and activate our inner strength warriors. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations And until next time, you got this.